industry, in the world, whatever you want to, however you want to define it. Talk a little bit about predictions at the moment. So predicting things is pretty difficult, especially macro events, very large things. Outcomes can be unpredictable, and there can be a lot of people making, having opinions or making predictions that go wrong, which leads people to kind of not kind of trust or believe predictions when if we think about things like the economy or sports or anything else that one's trying the stock market, anything else someone's trying to predict. And the other thing, when people are talking about these kind of predictions, they're often what I would call chaotic. What that means is they're in markets or they're in scenarios where there's a lot of variables. So when you have multiple variables, every variable adds a layer of complexity and a layer of kind of chaos. What that means is outcomes become even more unpredictable. This is like the case with the stock market. It's impossible to predict the stock market because there's too many variables. Each investor is a variable. That means it's impossible to predict the overall stock market. However, I would say it's not impossible to predict certain elements within the stock market, i.e., the overall trend of one particular stock over the long term, because the long term is more knowable than the short term. Just because that's kind of an overall trend rather than, I know where the stock market's going to be in one day. That's very unpredictable. And the future outcome of, let's say, forecasting one business versus the entire market. The entire market is so many variables, whereas one business is a little bit easier to predict. I'm not saying it's perfect, but yeah, anyway, we're talking about in general predictions. So, what have I predicted? Who am I to talk about predictions? Who's this joker on your screen talking to you about predictions? Well, I predicted a few things in my life. I think the most important for me, at least, was my godfather. I was talking about COVID in December 2019 and January 2020. I filled up my feed actually, and share my screen actually, just so that I'm not bullshitting. I'm going to go into my Facebook. I deleted a lot of the posts actually, and I hid a lot of the posts because I had a lot of hate. And this is not to point anyone out because I'm not pointing anyone out here because I'm not going to blame anyone that said I was wrong or whatever, because that's not the point of this exercise. The point of this exercise, actually, I'm going to stop sharing until I get to the specific posts. But the key thing is when one goes about predicting, one tends to, especially things that are against public belief or things that are a little bit maybe against the grain, if you like, contrarianism or things that are kind of edge cases. Edge cases is like things that could happen that might not happen. People that the masses, the majority of people tend to completely resist this, and in some cases, the most extreme reactions are, you're crazy, you're mad, you're wrong, some kind of variant on that kind of thing. If you bear with me a moment, I'm gonna just show you because I think it's important to show people. It's kind of important to show people rather than just tell people what happened. So if you just bear with me a moment. I'm actually passing some other things which are kind of relevant as well. Anyway. I'll share my screen. So as I'm going through, I'm looking at things that I predicted. So in December 2021, this is some kind of my kind of final warning, if you like, about inflation and interest rates. Obviously, no one believed me. I only got 2 likes, but I talked about the interest rates were gonna skyrocket um, in December about a year ago. At the point, I think they were like 0.5% maybe. I'm not quite sure what they were. We can have a quick look, but they were like super low, and like literally no one in the world thought that they were gonna. Not many people thought they were gonna go up quickly. Um, so if we look at what they were, all right. So the cost of borrowing in December 2021 was 0.1%. Less than a year later, it's gone to 3%. If you want to get a mortgage right now, it's about 5 or 6%. It's just one example of me kind of predicting. I'm not tooting my own horn here. I'm just we're talking in general about predictions. And this is one example. I talked about inflation and mortgages pretty consistently. Since about 2020, I went public in 2021. And you can see here, I made a video about fixing mortgages because I felt that mortgages was the main thing for people to fix. And because it's one of the biggest costs if you own a property, people are going to be struggling. And I did a playlist about inflation. 1 week, inflation is here. Inflation beating investing. Did some videos on my channel. Progress is everything. My other channel. And I also did some videos about the costs of owning a property going up as well because of some things that the government sneaked in for new regulations. And that's was only talked about kind of around maybe 6 to 9 months after I published this video. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen. The main thing I want to show you is the stuff that happened a bit earlier because it's important to be able to predict financial things. But I think it's much more. I personally think that it's much more important to when you can predict things that make a bigger impact, such as such as health. Actually, may as well show you this as well. This is an old video of me breakdancing. It just appeared. I don't know. I think it was because it was, I don't know, 10 years or something. But some people don't believe that I used to be able to breakdance. This was after training for like 2 hours. I was very tired. But my friend said you should just do something for the camera or whatever. So anyway, I'll stop sharing. I still haven't found the post. It shows how much I post on Facebook. Still, I know a lot of my friends aren't even on Facebook, but um, stick with me here. So here's me talking in August of 2021 about stagflation and slumpflation and inflation. And I talk about a book that I've read and I think it's really interesting called How to Survive the Slump. It's written about the inflation of the 1970s. Anyway, I was predicting inflation in 2020. I started to talk more about it here. And I was the reason why I made the videos on the mortgages and interest rates things in December is I was kind of, I suppose I was a little bit exasperated that nobody was talking about it and that no one thought that interest rates were gonna kind of go up. So I stopped sharing my screen now and I'll try and find the thing I was actually looking for. Okay, so I found some posts. I think like um yeah, I mean, let's have a look where when it started. I think it was January 2020. I started posting about it most. So my first post is not about my other YouTube channel, right? Um, the new China virus needs to be controlled pronto. Luckily, at present, the infection to death rate is low at circa 3%. That was in January 23rd. I was actually concerned about it much earlier than that. This is when I went public for the first time about my concern. Then 4 days later, I said, yikes, this virus is spreading fast. Do hope a cure is found fast, or it could become a global pandemic pretty fast. That was about 4 months, 3 to 4 months before the entire world and the WHO and the World Health Organization deemed COVID-19 as a pandemic. Precautions I suggested: work from home, limit travel, wash hands, carry antibacterial, and wear masks. Now, guys, this was about 3 to 6 months before people were saying to wash hands. Before Boris Johnson, the UK Prime Minister at the time, was saying wash hands for 20 seconds, I started wearing masks and not leaving the house in January. There was 10 comments. This is not kind of singling out anyone, because this is just what happens when you predict things. Like, some people are going to say it's wrong. Some people just say it's a panic. It's a new strain of flu. Um, so vaccines. This is very early. Um, in the pandemic. I'm not. I don't. I'm not a I'm not a microbiologist, and I see. Um, I suspect it will be in the UK in days. So everywhere will be affected. That was still in January. I was completely right. Um, Adina said that someone else says that vaccines do work. And then a bit later, someone said that it's already in the UK. So there's a lot of back and forth here, which I'm not going to read. But when you make predictions, people will say you are wrong, and it doesn't matter if who's right and wrong. But I do think sometimes it is important to take action. One day later, I said I like numbers. I don't like this new virus. It appears to be growing at an astonishing rate from 500 on Friday to over 4,500 today. At this rate, if not tackled soon, it could mushroom into a global pandemic. That was January 2020. Had 19 comments. Some of them not so positive. One person saying there was a panic with swine flu, and that it's not necessarily linear, and I shouldn't worry. Yeah, and then someone else saying that it's not gonna keep going up. Someone else saying it's just media hysteria. Me saying I hope so, thinking it's not going to. And I mentioned it was good news that China was taking it seriously. And then I kept kind of posting that things are getting worse. Yeah. And I just say hopefully governments and people will take it more seriously, or it will get worse. And then obviously I started getting more annoyed. Maybe in February and March, no one's taking notice, no one's listening. And then I think 6 months later, the WHO said it's a pandemic. Anyway, I started getting more impatient in kind of February and March. But then I changed my tactic. People weren't listening. And I started to short the markets. And I turned out to be completely right about that. Again, I'm saying it's a tragedy the UK government didn't take action on COVID. I was still annoyed about it, that no one was listening about COVID-19 in March. We didn't lock down, I think, until the end of March. Um, anyway, what I did start doing is I started to talk less about COVID. I was still talking about it in March, but less because it didn't really matter. No one was listening to me. Who am I? Just an average guy, an average Jake, if you like. I made a video about the limiting the spread of COVID-19, start of March, about working from home. People thought I was mad working from home. I was working for Genpact at the time, which is a company similar to Accenture in the kind of consultancy space, Deloitte or Accenture, etc. And people at Genpact really thought I was mad working from home. And I predicted that WeWork, where we were working as a big office company, I said they were going to lock down in the UK. Literally, people thought I was crazy. I think people might have thought that maybe reported me to HR. And I asked my manager, and she spoke to HR and was like, "This isn't going to happen." I said, "My mom's diabetic. She's old. She's at risk of this disease." And people again thought I was crazy. So I made a video about limiting the spread. Funny that YouTube started to de-escalate and kind of not ban the videos, but I think anyone that was talking about these kinds of things didn't get any kind of traction because there was a lot of hysteria. But anyway, I think I was pretty early to the party there. Anyway, I wanted to talk about what I focused on. I started to focus a little bit more on finance, and so I shorted the markets. I shorted the markets early, in early March. The US, mostly the UK, and it did quite well actually. I was right about that. I want to see if I can show you my Instagram page. Let's see, because I took some photos at the time. I made some videos as well. There isn't time to show you on this video. Don't have it on this one. Whatever. Anyway, I made some videos about that. And yeah, I made a decent amount of money, like 300 or 400%. I put all my money, everything I had, into shorting the market, and that did really well. I predicted it. I was about 3 to 7 days before global markets completely crashed. Listen, in this video, I don't want to like toot my horn to say that I'm able to predict everything. I am not able to predict everything. I did predict the US markets and the UK markets collapsing economically, and I did use options to short the markets, and I did make fuckloads of money doing that. But then I also predicted that Japan was going to do badly, that the Olympics were going to be cancelled, and that the pandemic would be pretty bad in Japan. And I was really wrong. I also shorted retail, and I thought that there was going to be bankruptcies and redundancies, and I didn't predict $10 trillion being pumped into people's pockets, and I didn't predict Eat Out to help out in the UK, where Rishi Sunak supported the leisure sector. I didn't predict the bounce in the stock market, so I can't predict everything. I wanted to come on to the most important thing. Probably a lot of people aren't watching to this point, which is fine. I understand I'm not able to always keep everyone's attention. Substance over style is what I always say about myself. And the most important thing about predictions, in my mind, is when you're able to predict something that's going to materially impact your life. And for me, the highest level, you've got kind of finance at the bottom level, and career and things like that, because that's important, for your family, whatever. The next level, I would say, is what could help your friends and family. So a bit broader than you and your own family, but your friends and friends of. And then I think the next level is how you can help the world. But obviously, someone like me, no one listens to me, so that's fine. But in the pandemic, obviously, I was talking about in January, three or 4 months before anyone else, or not anyone else. Obviously, there were some people talking about it, but not very many. And the most important thing for me was I was telling some of the people that were close to me about the pandemic early, and someone that close to me and my family credits me saving his life. He has a condition, and someone else that has the same condition sadly died from COVID 2 weeks after I'd made some serious recommendations to him to stay at home in February of the pandemic. So I'm getting a bit emotional. So it's really nice that he credits me. I feel very good that he's still alive. Because of some of the recommendations I was making, and some people aren't alive because they were getting bad advice. So I think predictions, like, you got like wealth and you got health, and I think health is one of the most important. I also think predictions can be helpful if one can get better at predictions, then one can think of things like when to make big action quickly, and that can be in the financial markets, but that's not really that important. When the Ukraine was at war, the war started, I don't know if I made a post. I certainly told a lot of people now would be the time to leave the Ukraine, and I think when I mentioned that, there was about 7 days left before they closed down the borders and Russia invaded, and it was getting really hot. And I think that's quite important as well, knowing when to make big actions in terms of life and death. So why am I making this video? It's a bit random. I've talked about some of the predictions I made, and I've made other predictions. Like, I predicted the Indian variant was going to be big, and we hadn't solved COVID, and blah 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 blah. Predicted lots of other stuff. Not all of my predictions come correct. But the reason I'm making this video is to talk about why predictions are important, how they can make a difference. In some cases, maybe only a small difference. Maybe you only help one person, but you can help them in a big way. Saving someone's life, I think, counts in my book as helping someone. Also, in another video I don't need to talk about today, it's not really a prediction, but it's kind of like a prediction. If you class a prediction as like thinking something could happen on limited information, also was able to I've saved a few people's lives actually in the last 2 or 3 years. I kind of helped my mom as well. It's a really stressful and sad story, so I'm not going to talk about that on today's video. But I do think, like, sharpening the skills of kind of predicting whether it's short-term outcomes or medium-term or long-term outcomes is a really super valuable skill. I think it's one of the best skills that I have, actually. My analysis skills, my prediction skills, of all of the skills that I have, I think, and I don't have, I'm not like Mr. Skill. I'm just saying, like, of the skills that I have, I would rank it the highest, because it has with prediction, you can help your life in so many ways. You can kind of think through trends and think through things how things are going to change, and it helps me in every sense of the word, really, and in every way. I have a channel about angel investing, which is essentially making predictions about how the world is going to be in 5, 10, 15 years from now. So I put my predictions to test with backing startups. But anyway, I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to have a predictions playlist. I'm going to area on my YouTube channel where I can talk about what I think is going to happen. And, probably a lot of them aren't going to work out. A lot of them are going to be wrong. I thought that Zika virus might be big as well. Didn't turn out to be very big. And there's other things that I predicted that didn't come true. I thought that some of the stocks in the stock market that I was that I'm backing and investing in. Thought they would do quite well, but obviously there's been a massive turn down, or downturn, if you like, in financial markets, which I kind of thought was going to happen, but didn't act. I've also lost a little bit of money when I've been wrong with predictions, like I was wrong with Japan. So I'm not always right on these things, but I thought I'd make an area on my YouTube channel to talk about some of the things I'm thinking about predictions, both on a small scale and maybe on a big scale. And I'll talk about that a bit more on this channel. I've rambled a bit now. Hope you enjoy these videos. These videos are made for posterity, for documentation anyway, so I can look back. And certainly this prediction playlist is part of that as well. I can say I was wrong here, or hopefully I was right on this other video. All right, guys. Hope you've enjoyed this video. I know it's been rambling, but I hope that helps or entertains or whatever. See you guys in the next one.